Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Kim Baldwin, and I'm happy today to be presenting the final project closing results of the St. Kitts and Nevis FAO Drone Mapping and Geospatial Analysis Training for Agricultural Disaster Risk Monitoring Program. Just a quick review of what the agenda is today. This is really our chance, or the team's chance, to highlight or share their story of what the last 10 to 12 weeks has been like. As you all know, they've been very busy. We've been working really hard. And so rather than me giving you a long, boring overview of the presentation, we are going to just show you by example, leading you through the last 10 weeks with us and presenting some of the initial baseline mapping and monitoring results presented by the team today. So with that, I'd like to open this up for welcomes and introductions by the St. Kitts and Nevis Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I must say that I'm happy to be able to give some welcome remarks and introduction. And it's unfortunate that I did not get to meet Dr. Baldwin while you were here doing the training. And I want to first start by congratulating everyone who was a part of the FAO drone and geospatial training. I think this is timely as we make strides for St. Kitts and Nevis to adopt agricultural technology. And so I want to say a big congratulations to FAO, but also to say thank you for the work you have done with the team from St. Kitts and Nevis. And I know that the persons who have been a part of the training will definitely take what you have taught them and continue to develop their skills as we continue to adopt technology for St. Kitts and Nevis. And with my very brief remarks and introduction, because I have to run to another engagement, again, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see the faces from agriculture and the other areas within government, such as NEMA, etc., being here with us, and of course, our sister island, Nevis, being a part of this session. And again, good afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we will ask Riza Spencer from FAO in Barbados, the program coordinator for the project.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm observing all protocols in the room. Mr. Miguel Fleming, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources, Entrepreneurship, Creative Economy, Culture, Sports, and Cooperatives. Ms. Yashana Jeffers, Acting Director of Agriculture. Technicians from the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Kimberly Baldwin. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually today as we mark the closing of this phase of the FAO Drone and Geospatial Participatory-UAS project. This moment is not just a celebration of the skills you have gained, but also a recognition of the broader impact of participatory geospatial technologies in shaping the future of agriculture and disaster resilience. In today's world, climate change and environmental risks threaten food security, and we cannot afford to rely on outdated or inefficient methods of managing agricultural systems. Participatory geospatial technologies, which include drones, GIS mapping, and data analytics, provides us with a way to bridge science, technology, and community knowledge to make better informed decisions. These tools allow us to map and monitor our farmlands in real time, assess risks before, during, and after disasters to help farmers prepare for extreme weather events, improve resource allocation, support climate-smart agricultures, and encourage data-driven decision-making, which empowers both the policymakers, local communities with accurate and up-to-date information. The work done under this project, your work, is helping you to operationalize these technologies for St. Kitts and Nevis and beyond. You, as trained drone pilots and analysts, are now part of a growing network of professionals who are not just collecting data, but are using it to drive real change in how we manage agricultural risks. The establishment of the drone unit in St. Kitts ensures that this effort does not end today. Instead, it paves the way for stronger institutional frameworks, sustainable capacity building, and better collaboration. As we move forward, we must ensure that this work continues, and that means strengthening our national drone policies, providing ongoing training, and forging new partnerships that enable innovation and sustainability. To our drone pilots and analysts, I encourage you to see yourselves as leaders in this space. You have now gained the expertise to bring about meaningful change, whether through precision agriculture, disaster recovery planning, or environmental monitoring. The future of geospatial technology depends on your continued engagement and innovation. On behalf of FAO, I'd like to extend my gratitude to all of you who made this project possible, our partner, Dr. Kimberly Baldwin and trainer, and of course, you, the participants who have worked hard to gain these skills. As you showcase your work today, I encourage you to think about the impact your skills will have beyond this project in helping farmers, policymakers, and communities build a more resilient and food-secure future. Congratulations once again, and I look forward to seeing your continued success. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Raisa. All right, so without any further ado, we will begin the review. As we all know, we're here today, but I know we've got some of the heads of department with us. Drones are really revolutionizing environmental management. They allow us to easily collect data in areas that were previously inaccessible. But the best way is it allows us to save time by doing things more efficiently, and we can typically do things in a more minimally invasive way. But what excites me, and I hope excites this new drone team, is that when we take just plain drones and we pair them together with geospatial analysis software, we can have more of a real-time understanding of the environment and be able to analyze this data to create information to make useful and informed decisions within the country. So the focus of this FAO program was on agriculture, agricultural applications. And so I have some of the main applications that agriculture are being used for today, and we will see case studies from the team today in many of these applications. So crop health and understanding irrigation patterns, harvest estimation, and planting and resource use is extremely important, as well as using drones for being able to target effective and timely management action. Disaster risk management, whether it's with drones or communities, coastal marine ecosystems, is another focus of this training, which was really looking at the use of drones for real-time damage assessments, but also understanding how drones can be used to quantify and map storm surges, flooding events, as well as assist with search and rescue, and identifying in advance vulnerable areas so that we can build capacity and strengthen management before disasters happen. Furthermore, drones and geospatial technologies really allow us to get this remote communication, real-time information, and collaborative management efforts across the nation, and same in St. Kitts and Nevis across the Twin Islands. All right, so you are able to inspect and assess and mitigate as well as act on actions. So why are we using drone mapping? As I just reviewed, it allows us to capture real-time, highly accurate data, be able to act and analyze this data, and be able to act on actions. So the drone technology type of software that we used in this training, we're using off-the-shelf DJI drones together with a drone photogrammetry spatial analysis software called Drone Deploy. This software, I've done a lot of research and the team has worked extensively over the last 10 weeks learning, but it allows you to plan and fly missions, process the data to create 3D maps and models of the environment, as well as analyze the data so that we are able to summarize, report, and act on the information. Furthermore, this cloud-based platform helps in terms of remote communication and a lot of other infrastructural shortcomings many Caribbean countries face, such as cloud networks and shared access, remote access, as well as software. So this technology really has allowed us to use off-the-shelf computers, off-the-shelf drones, and learn in a relatively short amount of time how to conduct not just doing mapping surveys, but processing and analyzing the data. As I mentioned, this project here is a project together with FAO, This is the 6th country I've implemented this project in around the Caribbean for FAO since 2022. I believe is when we started. And so we will be showcasing and I will be explaining the journey and the project objectives, and then the team will be giving you the final results. As I mentioned before, if you saw some of the opening trainings, this was a blended class. It has been ongoing since February up until today, and more than 150 hours of in-person as well as virtual training courses and lessons have been delivered. Furthermore, they had a drone mapping guidebook, which I wrote and developed, which led everybody through all the steps and processes that we will be presenting today. This also wasn't just a theoretical training, there was a lot of practical skills. So the team members, both the pilots and the analysts, learned all of these steps you see here on the right, from planning the mission safely and effectively to executing and flight conduct, to how to properly handle, manage data, and review the results. And it has accumulated in the development of 7 baseline drone mapping and monitoring sites across St. Kitts and Nevis. Who's the team? As I mentioned, it's a team of 18, 8 pilots and 10 data analysts that were split across 5 different agencies in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you can see the breakdown of females to males. Down here was where we began, and the team has recently conducted an assessment of where they feel their skills are now that we're done. So the first step here, or part of the project, was first of all to develop a commercial operations protocol. So the ultimate goal of this project is to set up and implement a drone unit for the country of St. Kitts and Nevis Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources. That being said, we learned all about commercial policies, and we developed operations manual has been written as part of this process, which looks at not just the flight conduct, but the structure of the teams, the data handling, the management, and the roles of all of these team members. So the first thing, as I mentioned, that we learned when we started this class was a focus on learning to fly commercial operations, which are flying at a different standard than recreational operations. And there are a lot of international standard operating procedures and policies that had to be learned. And so this is just showing you an outline of the table of contents, and this is what we learned. So we didn't just read the manual, we practiced this entire manual for the last 10 weeks on every single site and mission that was accomplished. So we started by really learning, and the team applied the regulatory management agencies. We learned who is in charge, and we built the partnerships under this project to now have the formal collaborations with these agencies within the country and the region. We learned about the rules and regulations, not just globally that are shown here, but we had a meeting with the civil aviation, and we learned what the remotely piloted aircraft systems, or RPAS, which is another acronym for drones, limitations are within the country. We also learned about what the no-fly or restricted zones are, as well as the requirements for commercial operations. So the team successfully during this training registered all the drones that were purchased under the project. We obtained flight permission and drone licenses from civil aviation, as well as SCASPA and NASPA, as well as now have the contacts with air traffic control. So the compliance, or the national regulation within the country, is that you must call air traffic control both before and when you land on a flight for final takeoff permission, and we've been following those procedures. So the first, as I mentioned, it was blended. So we started virtually, and then I came in person and I taught the first drone training boot camp. So this was a very intensive boot camp. As I mentioned, we had a meeting with civil aviation, and we learned all about the policies, but we learned how to fly drones. We learned about safety procedures, as well as basic flight exercises of how to fly your drone. We also learned and practiced the flight procedures for commercial operations in terms of flight requests and flight planning and execution. But my big focus in this class, which might not have been the team's favorite thing, was on data. It was on GIS data handling, management, storage conventions, and naming conventions. Because if we're working in a team of 18 people across 5 agencies, we all have to do things in a standard way. so for data reuse and accessibility. We spent a lot of time learning about flight planning. So in terms of commercial operations, you need to do a threat and a feasibility risk safety assessment and a site inspection and assessment for each and every mission. So the team and I learned how to do this and how to unlock the drones within the DJI system, but more importantly, how to get the national permission to fly in various areas, even within restricted areas of St. Kitts and Nevis. We also learned pretty much the hard way in this class how to operate in high risk conditions. That first boot camp, we had 40-mile-an-hour winds. I've never had such hard winds or such challenging conditions in any drone training that I had in this country. So we learned a lot about what can we do to minimize our risk in these high risk situations. It doesn't mean you cannot fly in these situations, but there are certain management measures, threat and error management measures that you can put into place to minimize risk and accomplish the mission. So we learned and practiced and did these exercises, for each and every site. This is an example of the risk assessment form that was filled out. We also learned about data handling and flight logs and checklists, which are also required by international law for commercial operations. And we learned how to conduct, using drone deploy, flight surveys and mapping. So we learned about mission planning and developing customized flight plans based on the applications of the drone flight request and mission. So this is an example from Dieppe, but we conducted the surveys and then we created the information. So the second part of this class was a big focus on advanced mapping for agriculture and developing monitoring strategies using a participatory GIS approach. So you can see here the commercial operations steps continued with this bottom row here, which are the steps required for developing a monitoring strategy. So we flew our missions, we reviewed our data, we assessed them for quality, and then we did analysis and developed monitoring strategies for all 7 sites, which the team will be presenting today. Also in this component of the class, we learned about the various types of drones that are out there, the various payloads, as well as began doing a national government public sector audit or inventory of the existing drone resources that are within St. Kitts and Nevis across both islands. Also, then I went back out just a few weeks ago and we performed the second intensive 5-day data analysis boot camp. This boot camp took things to the next level in terms of agricultural mapping, but we also learned how to convert and create data. We learned about data handling and management and storage, as well as participatory mapping, finding ways to fill in the data gaps that we're missing, to be able to validate the data that we've collected so that we could validate these annotations with local stakeholders. The team also got a great taste of GIS and an introduction to GIS data, as well as integrations with drone data, and how to create and share the information. So this was another action-packed boot camp. So as I mentioned, we learned a lot about the various products, and this is just a list of some of the products. So you can integrate the drone deploy outputs, either with ArcGIS, Dropbox, but also with different apps that do AI and machine learning so that your analysis of the mapping data can be quickly and easily examined. Also, we learned how to bring in overlay maps. This is an example from Fort Charles where the team brought in a map they found online of the historical site, and we overlaid that on top of the flight plan there, you could see. So we learned how to use the web mapping processing platform for processing, but we spent a lot of time looking at the data review, the accuracy of the data, the quality of the data. We learned how to use analysis tools. We learned how to export and download and share these data, not just as GIS or Google Earth data sets, but also as PDFs and URLs for mapping. Last but not least, we learned how to create these annotations and export them as reports or GeoJSON, which can be viewed in ArcGIS Earth or ArcGIS, and create issue and flag management action reports as well. So, in conclusion, what did this team accomplish? We had 8 pilots, 4 drones, Air 2Ss, and drone deploy software license. In less than 10 weeks, we successfully mapped 7 sites, 4 which were agriculture, 3 which were disaster risk management. Over 60 surveys and 4,000 images were created, and over 3,000 acres were mapped during this training. And now, without any further ado, the team will be presenting their final results of this training. So, if I can get the St. Kitts first team up on the stage, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Good afternoon, Kim.
Yeah, good afternoon.
No, there's no feedback.
So I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. What slides? I can move it? Okay. A pleasant good afternoon to all. My name is Baisha Christian, and I will be presenting for and consisting of Linda Ward, Leslie Benjamin, and myself. Our focus is on mapping and monitoring agricultural lands in the mansion farming settlement using drone technology. Next slide. So how did we start it? First, we started off with a request. The request basically can come from anyone to conduct drone work. And then we went on to do the scoping worksheet, which is basically a breakdown of details of the site. Then we went on to the flight feasibility and safety assessment, which is an evaluation of the flight area and assessing factors that can negatively impact the safety of the flight. And finally, we did a mission and flight plan, which outlined the details of the drone mission. And this basically includes the objectives of the flight and crew information, etc. Next. So why mansion? Why we choose to do mansion? Mansion is the largest and most productive agricultural community in St. Kitts. It is also home to the Mansion Farmers Co-op and has roughly 15 to 20 farmers, different farmers farming in the area. Lastly, it is critical to the contribution of the national food production efforts in St. Kitts. So what are the applications that support this? We choose precision agricultural mapping and monitoring, which tend to focus on the mapping of crop cultivations under the 25 by 25 project, which is basically aimed to the reduction of food import bill. The next application, land management practices, which assesses the compliance with agricultural protocols such as land lease agreements, regulations, boundary maps, and the list goes on. Lastly, our last application that we choose to look at is the assessment of land availability within the area by identifying uncultivated lands, ensuring optimal land use and continued agricultural productivity by providing farmers who are on a long waiting list lands. Next slide. Here we have our flight service statistics. Flight parameters, basically we have the drone that we used was the DJI Air, and to complete this mission, we flew at a 120 meters above ground level. We took a total amount of 15 flights to complete the mapping at a duration of 179 minutes. 772 pictures were captured during the process. 4 surveys were conducted. We did a complete map, which you will be seeing shortly, a sweet potato field map, a banana panorama, and a master shot. Lastly, we took the participatory approach, which in our mission outlined 3 entities. The extension officers that helped with the process were Leroy Merritt, Mark Adams, land officer Leslie Benjamin, and farmers in the area, especially the mansion farming group. Next slide. What you have here is the data processing of the maps that we would have captured, the information that would have captured out in the field. We mapped 480 acres, and we are looking at the elevation levels, drone imagery, and the 3D model of the area, mansion area. So have a good look. That's what we did. Isn't it cool? What you're looking at also, the red shows that the red is the highest point in mansion, whereas the blue is the lowest. So it is, you can see that there's a slight slope happening there. Next slide. Mapping and analysis results. Here you have the metadata table. This is what we would have done to make sure that we break down all the information to start our annotation. This information is basically information about the information that you'll be looking at. So the annotation, we have our pretty map here of mansion. What you're seeing is different characteristics of the annotation. We have a total of 223, and doing that, we were able to identify 30 threats in the area. These threats varies. You have squatters, you have erosion, you have pollution, and the list goes on. In addition to that, after mapping, we were able to find that 218 acres of land in the area is uncultivated. A total of 18 acres was under the production of the 25 by 25 initiative. And finally, a total of 89 acres were under production with other crops such as sweet potato and banana, which we would have analyzed and come to a conclusion that the area is famous for. Most of the farmers are famous for that. We further did analysis in GIS. This is our GIS map, which we did an overlay. You would have seen soil. It is an overlay of the soil and water distribution in St. Kitts in the area. So doing that, we were able to see that the mansion area has most of the the soil in the area is called young soil. That's the orange that you're looking at. And the other half is quarter soils that you have most of the livestock is taking place on. So you see that the soil in the area is really good for crop farming. Then you also we're able to find 2 reservoirs in the area, 3 dams, and 39 sluices, which shows that the farmers are taking some sustainable measures in combating the water runoff situation that they are facing. Next. Recommendations. We encourage more farmers to contribute to the 25 by 25 crops in the area, given the results from the analysis, showing that the crops in the area, the soil in the area is rich for it, and there's water in the area. In addition to that, we asked that the uncultivated lands be filled with new applicants to boost productivity. Let me explain the uncultivated lands. When we did groundwork, we realized that some of the uncultivated lands, uncultivated due to the fact that the farmers had recently reaped their produce, some of them, not all of them. Next point, regularize squatters who are productive. We want to be able to regularize them and get them into the agricultural farming registration so that we could ensure that it's done properly and by our books. Repair eroded roads. That was one of the most common issue in the mansion area. We have a number of threats happening, and that one was famous. You have a lot of eroded roads and overgrown areas. And to repair those we give the farmers greater access to their farms. And lastly, build additional sluices and dams to harvest water runoff. The area is sloped and it will it will provide an opportunity for slushes to be built and harvested easily. So that's group 4. Thank you all for listening.
Well done.
Good afternoon, everyone. So presenting, I'm Ayodele De Costa, and my team members are Augustine Nosu and Blossom Jones, and I will be speaking on the Frigate Bay PUAS monitoring site. Next slide, please. So the application's importance and site overview. Mapping applications for Frigate Bay. As a collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of Physical Planning, these are the applications we highlighted for the Frigate Bay site. Marine conservation and surveillance and monitoring to ensure the protection of marine biodiversity by tracking changes in the protected areas, coastal erosion monitoring, development planning, salt pond and mangrove monitoring, and evaluation and management efforts. Next. For the mission procedures, as outlined by the previous team, the first thing is a flight request form. It is a Google form that was created in the email account for the drone team. This form is submitted by any clients that would like to have a flight done in any shape, style, or form. And then the next step would be, from what I know, could be interchangeable, but the feasibility and safety assessment, where we determine whether or not that this site is viable for a flight, and there are certain parameters and things that have to be looked at and things to be considered. There's a step-by-step process breaking down low, medium, or high risk. And then if it is a low risk, we can then move to the scoping sheet, which provides all of the details based on what was submitted for the site to break down what are we mapping, what are we looking for, what are the things we're looking to identify. And finally, we then do the mission planning, which determines how many flights we're going to do, who are the team members for the flight, etc., what time, the weather, and all those things considered. Surveys. For the Frigate Bay site, we utilized, as well as the Mansion site, a DJI A2S UAV. 6 flight surveys were conducted, 2 of them being salt pond map between February 11 and February 19th, and an offshore map, both done at 100 meters. Also, a fixed photo plan was done for the marina. 2 panorama views were done, and a strip corridor of the Frigate Bay strip, as highlighted there. As highlighted there for the site. And these are examples of the various surveys that were done. Next, thank you. For the complete map, it was done at 100 meters in altitude, utilizing terrain aware software inside of drone deploy that allows you to follow the terrain whilst it's flying. 2 flight surveys were combined to make this complete map, which were the salt pond and the offshore. And the 2 flight surveys total up to 90 minutes. A total of 347 images were taken and 131 acres were mapped. The resolution of the final picture that would be produced is 3 centimeters per pixel, and as recommended by Dr. Baldwin, that is optimal resolution for this type of imagery. The accuracy was between plus and 12 minus 12 meters. That is to determine how well it lines up with real life events. The measurements inside are the same, but it's just to adjust it to match what's on the ground. Next, please. Mapping results. These are some of the results of the Frigate Bay site. We have a 3-dimensional view, as well as an elevation model and contours. The elevation model highlights where the low-lying areas are, and most people, if you don't know, Frigate Bay mainly sits about 5 meters above sea level, roughly. So it makes it highly susceptible to coastal erosion, yes, thank you, coastal erosion, storm surge, and tsunamis. We did a corridor of the strip, length 80 meters at height 60 meters, and we did a panorama shot of the Frigate Bay area as well. For the annotation report, we have a table that is called a metadata table that guides what we draw on the map to digitize. This table was very tedious to do. These are the things that we want to highlight on the map to present, which is what we're presenting here today. And as a result of that, this is what the final product looks like. A total of 86 annotations were captured, and the reclaimed land, which is also being utilized as the marina, as everybody knows, is 3.2 acres in size. The mangrove area was captured as 1.5 acres. The salt pond was 19.7 acres. There were approximately 20 marine boats or vessels observed, as well as 9 navigational buoys. For monitoring strategy and recommendations, analysis, monitoring development changes time, we suggested that it's done quarterly. For seasonality, we choose the hurricane and tourist seasons because they go hand in hand for how they can affect the site. We want to monitor how many people at the site at a given time during the tourist season, before and after, as well as in the hurricane season, we want to do pre and post impact assessments. And also we have to consider high and low tide to monitor the coastal erosion, because that is also a factor. Additional data collection and field surveys needed. We need ground truthing surveys for the mangroves, because even though we may know the type of mangrove present, we're not sure as to the quantities. In relation to the boats and hotels and bars, we are to seek the information of employees present, so we can get an idea as to the number or quantity of individuals that may be present at any given time on the site, to help in disaster preparation. So we could consider, okay, X amount of people, this amount of people we have to evacuate, that we considerate about in the event of anything. Participatory mapping exercises. We did highlight some possible sites of dumping, as well as there's an area on the, we know as Frigate Bay land, that is subject to a lot of water logging. So those are areas we highlighted, as well as outreach and education, sharing media and information. We also have to go and find a means and a way to share this with the public, make them aware of what we are doing, because we could do all this work and then people gonna want to know, what are they doing all the work for, and where they're flying drone over this place and that place. And so public awareness is a key part of all of this. And factors for success is collaborative PUAS approach, where the relevant stakeholders within the area, such as the Department of Marine Resources, Physical Planning, Tourism Authority, Frigate Bay Development Corporation, and the hotels and businesses in the area, we should all come together and be aware and monitor the site in our own ways, so that we can all benefit from the grand scheme of what the site presents to St. Kitts, because Frigate Bay, I want to believe, and I think everybody would agree, is the most famous beach in St. Kitts. Thank you.
Well done. All right. Boys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Brandy, and I will be presenting for Fahies. My data analyst is Alicia White, and I'm the pilot. Next. Fahies overview. PUAS site mapping application, mapping of agricultural land and space uses, monitoring livestock, wildlife, infrastructure, and biodiversity, assessment of terrain and land uses in the area, surveillance and monitoring, crop and land development planning. Next. Drone mapping and flight surveys. 1. Create flight plans in drone deploy flown at 120 meters using DJI A2S drone. Number 2, complete map captured in 3 surveys at a total of 6 flights. Top, central, and low. 3, site surveys, agricultural lands, and infrastructure. Down below here, you have the complete site map monitoring extent developed by using KML import. Total flight time, 89 minutes. Total images captured, 572. Fahies agricultural mapping results. So the total map area was 193 acres, 573 images. The complete site of a mosaic for Fahies. The resolution was 3.5 centimeters per pixel. Accuracy, 2 meters. Am I correct? Yeah. In the bottom, we have a 3D model, a digital elevation surface model, Yeah. And to the bottom, we have plant health shown in drone deploy. Next. FAO's agricultural analysts, annotation measures and site report, summary of measurements and findings. In the top right corner, we have some mapping for farmlands. You put me on this spot. Yeah, this top right photo is a photo of farmland mapping, which highlights different places on the map. The red, farms with ground cover, the yellow, uncultivated lands, and the, what is the blue? Go back, Kim, go back. Anyway, PUAS monitoring strategy and recommendation. Monitoring frequency, monitor site every 6 months, tracking our farmland usage, locate use of climate resilient methods in farming such as ground cover, monitor residential development, cash crop farming, plant health, infrastructure, inspections and planning. Recommendations: untapped water well can be utilized to supply water to farms in the forest area. Development of roads, better accessibility by farms and for tourism. Continued monitoring of land use and reallocation where necessary for farmland to promote food security. Continuing ground truthing and engagement with farmers for data, validation, and map exercises.
All right. So, Meriden Monroe.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, Kim. Before we start, I'd just like to say, so far, you guys really did a good job. I like how y'all explain the process so that we don't have to go through it, so you could just run through the slides. So today we're presenting on Bayfords Agricultural Center, Participatory-UAS monitoring site. And our teammates are, I am Manu Tweed, and I have Mr. Leroy Merritt as my data analyst. The first page, we have the picture of the hatchery here as our opening. And then we'll move on to our next slide. All right, so Bayfords Agricultural Center and the overview. The importance of Bayfords. So Bayfords is a breeding stock farm for interested stakeholders. And it's also a potential demonstration farm. So I know the Department of Agriculture and the Ministry of Agriculture, we hope to utilize this land to develop our capacity to produce animals, to train farmers, or to have it as a place that farmers can come and get that model of how it should be done and take it to their respective properties. On site, we have a poultry hatchery, and we currently have cattle husbandry happening. As you can see by the pasture as the background. Our stakeholders in this venture are the Ministry of Agriculture, the Department of Agriculture, and the Taiwanese Technical Mission, who have partnered with us to develop the hatchery and operate it until it is turned over to our complete operations. Next slide, please. All right, so our mapping and monitoring survey. First, if you look in the top right corner, you would see our overall mapping goal and the grid lines, which would represent what the drone would fly and take images to compile and develop our image, our baseline that we would then analyze, annotate, and anything else that we need to do. It was not flown as one piece because of the risk involved in Bayfords. Bayfords is a highly technical and terrain area. It has hills and valleys that we have to account for when operating drones that have specific range and signal requirements. We would have used the DJI Air 2S to complete this mission. We accumulated 578 images. We would have made 7 flights to complete this mission, 2 days, and it was 3 mapping surveys that would encompass the agricultural mapping, and then we did a panorama that would give us a very brief overview of a picture of the entire property in a sweeping motion. In our bottom right, go back, Pim. Okay. In our bottom right corner, you would see the PUAS scoping study, which is one of those initial documentations you need to, before you even fly it, you have to understand why you want this flight, what is the resources, who is it beneficial to, and on that paper you would have, it asks for your site description, your monitoring application, the habitats, and the stakeholders involved. And then in the center bottom, you would have noticed there's some blue dots, and this is actually where the drone took the pictures. So it shows you the geospatial position of every picture when you come to analyze. For reference, as it is geo-stamped, all of these pictures can be referenced and then put into the real-time map for later use. Next slide. Bayfords mapping applications. Our application was monitoring livestock, that is cattle, and also assessing the assessment of terrain and landscape uses in the area, the surveillance and monitoring of both livestock, but also the wildlife too, because the Department of Agriculture has or intends to do things such as monitoring and wildlife, feral animal control, and Bayfords presents that opportunity, as well as pasture management planning. In the re-establishment and development of Bayfords, I see drone application or drone technology as a pivotal technology in very real time, assessing data, collecting it, and then being able to plot how best to reorganize or to continue to expand our current infrastructure, whether it is housing, fencing, or irrigation or electricals. On the right-hand side, you see another map colored blue to highest. So you get an idea of the elevation as well as the content, which will be critical in developing and considering water runoff, roads, and fencing for optimal flow. And underneath is a basic baseline map. That is what the drone stitches together. So you can see what it is in real life. You see the paddocks, whether they are graded, maintained, or any other status, as well as the infrastructure present on it. Next slide. Kim, next slide. All right. So the site analysis. So site analysis. This is the compilation of data that would have been collected, and then we would find use for it as we see fit. So now we had a total acreage of 193 acres, or 193.7 acres to be exact. Mapping accuracy was 2.7 centimeters per pixel, as this flight was not flown at 120 meters, but 100 meters because of the difficulty. We also encountered some issues, both in flying, but also in our annotation, as I will explain. And we have some mitigation measures. On the left bottom corner, you would have a metadata table as previously mentioned. This is what you would use as your key in your map. This is what tells you what these colors mean or what these points are supposed to represent. In our top right corner, you would see a lot of shapes, polygons. If you were using drone deploy, that is what you would term it, these shapes. And they are paddocks. Now you would notice some are green and some are yellow. The green paddocks would be what we would have determined are fenced or sufficiently fenced. And then the yellow ones would be things that need repairing or need some kind of adjustment. We also can see infrastructure. We have the radio towers by the orange pin. At the right of that, we have a panorama outlined by the blue globe. And throughout numbers 4, those are infrastructure. Number 7 is a compilation of infrastructure where the hatchery sits. So it's quite easy to see how this can be applied. On our bottom right corner, we have some older infrastructure, what used to be milking parlors, and the erection of a new pig stall, and it is cropped out just a bit because of where the drone was placed when it was taking the pictures. Nonetheless, it is real time, and it is quite important or easy to see the application. Next slide. All right. As mentioned before, we would have been able to annotate this property to very easily present a document that would show or outline the resources on this property. We have the annotation report, and it amounted to 56 annotations, much of it being infrastructure. But then we have paddocks, we had a water cistern, the irrigation line, and even things that were not seen could then be annotated and made a note of what that data is and how it was collected. In the case of previous persons, they would have outlined ground truthing surveys, which is a participatory mapping approach where we would consult stakeholders on the ground so we get that hands-on data, that information that can then be put into this application, this GIS application. So we now have it compiled and ready to be distributed to persons that need it or are authorized to access this information. It also offers us the opportunity to create real-time site maps so we can easily have a guide to traverse this area. So Bayfords PUAS recommendations. The overall objectives was site monitoring, development, and pasture mapping. So the monitoring frequency is every 3 months, that is a quarter in our agricultural organization. So we can better understand what the progress is, how we can implement certain strategies to execute the mission that is tasked for that facility. Stakeholders for the Department of Agriculture, Taiwanese Technical Mission, that is the ICDF, and the farmers for validation and as end users. And I should have one more slide. No? All right, then that concludes my presentation, short and timely.
All right, well done.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Today I'm representing consists of Kama, Maisha, and myself, who are also a part of the Department of Agriculture and NEMA. We decided to map the community of Dieppe. Why? It is a small, quiet village, but it's also a high risk for tsunami. We went out as a team and fly our DJI here to S Drone to map east, west, north of the village and merge as one complete map. Slide 2. We did not only map for tsunami watch, but map for coastal erosion, evacuation planning, risk factor, and etc., just to name a few. In our mapping result of this flight was approximately 72 minutes in total, for flight altitude of 100 meters. 576 pictures were captured at 4 separate flights, only one panel flown at 80 meters of 26 images. Next. Okay. Carefully studying our analysis report, 51% of our homes, 58% of our businesses, and 5.8 kilometers of roads will be destroyed if it will get impacted by a tsunami. And this is why we at NEMA also do drills so that people can see and get prepared of how we react towards when these hazards have to come. What I say about this drone that is very precise in data, these drones will come in handy, especially for the NEMA department when it comes to pre and post hazards. In the future, I'm looking forward to see us go together as a team and fly. And I want to say thanks to Dr. Kim Baldwin for taking time out and teaching us how important these drones are in today's world. Short, sweet, to the point. Thank you.
All right, so let's go next. So I think we have Team Nevis. So this training also involved another team from Nevis. And now we will have Nevis team give their presentations. They will be giving their 2 site presentations and then leading in to the next item on the agenda, which is looking at the structure and implementation and recommendations for this unit moving forward, both in Nevis, and then we'll hear back from St. Kitts. All right.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are from Team Nevis. In our presentation today, we have decided to showcase the work that was done with drone technology for New River and Fort Charles. Why, you may ask, these particular areas? New River is our highly dense populated area with farmers, and Fort Charles is currently experiencing a lot of coastal erosion. So that's why we decided to highlight these 2 particular areas. Our group is comprised of Dejan Jeffords, Kyron Phillip, Zoe, and myself. I am Shakima Hanley, and today, me and Zoe will be your presenters for today. Next slide, Kim. So the applications that we use for Fort Charles is the identification of marine species and ecosystems, identification of historical artifacts, erosion monitoring and evaluation, identification of fisher folks, sand mining, and the comparison of coastal erosion over time. And from the agriculture aspect, we'll be looking at government estates and lease farmlands, where we'll be mapping farm sizes, the plant health and condition for surveillance, land gradient mapping for future projects. We'll be also looking at some of the threats and disasters that are happening over in the New River area. We have a big issue with the invasive species, so we'll be tabulating the amount of damages affected to crops and also livestock. We'll be also looking at livestock identification. We'll be looking at crop production. And in addition to damages that we are facing in the New River area, we have a big issue with theft, especially in regards to the historical sites and some of our crop farmers. Next slide. So before our flight, we have to conduct a PUAS scoping sheet to list the monetary applications of each site, a flight feasibility, safety feasibility assessment to plan our activities and examine how feasible it is to do the flight. And during the flight now, we did a mission data sheet recording key data like the wind, the flight altitude, these different data. Next. So this is the information for Charles. Oh, no, yeah. We flew with a DJI Air 2S and we did 3 flight surveys, total 10 flights for 55 minutes. We did an area of 104.58 acres. We took 298 images. We did a video plan and also a 360 site panorama. Next. So for baseline mapping results, we did an orthomosaic resolution, 3.19 centimeter per pixel, a digital elevation model resolution, 12.78, and a map accuracy for the x-axis, 1.9, y, 2 meters, and for the z-axis, 0.6. Next slide. So for our annotation results, we noticed that there were 8 historical artifacts like cannons, the guardhouse there, 5 abandoned buildings, 3 marine resources like boats and stuff like that. Within the area, we know that people do fishing, swimming, snorkeling. And in terms of disaster risk, there are issues with sand mining. And for the distance tool, we measured along the coastline to see how long that it was affected with coastal erosion. And it was 1.20 km along the coast for the area. We did the tool to map certain areas where there's historical site, there was an archery grounds nearby, and we identified areas with illegal dumping. And we identified wildlife such as the fish nursery and the crabs. And we realized that there was a lot of boats around the area, so we used the count tool to identify 13 boats. And again, we used the radius tool to locate where people were illegally dumping, and also birds' nests. Next slide. So this is just the annotation results for Fort Charles. You see all the prettiness here on the screens. So yes, next slide. All right, go back, Kim. Yes, so in regards to the river, we decided to do our flight mapping in 2 separate sections. So we did west and east first. This was done on the 28th of February. And then we did southwest and southeast of the map, which was done on the 14th of March. We used the DJI Air 2S drone. We had 3 flight surveys, a total of 5 flights, accumulating a time of 1 hour and 53 minutes, mapping out 123.55 acres and a total imagery of 739 images. In regards to the baseline mapping results for the river, we did the ortho resolution, which is 3.47 cm pixel. Then we had the digital elevation, which is 13.87, and we did the map accuracy, as you see listed there. Next slide, Kim. So the annotation measurements, when we did the annotation, we had a number of points that were listed out. Most of it was more so infrastructure. As you can see, we had about 20 infrastructures that would have been annotated, which comprises of water tanks, shops, historical artifacts, the morgue, barn, guard huts, farmhouses, etc. We also have 6 habitats and resources, which comprises of poultry farms, aquaculture, and livestock. And then we also mapped out the primary road, and we have a number of secondary roads where farmers would use to access their various farms. We did the distance of the primary road, and we also did the distance of the secondary road, which you can see the measurements are there. In regards to the area, we did the farmland area boundary of all the farms within the area, which comprise of both crops and livestock, accumulating of 110 acres. We did the tourism boundary, reason being the historical site, the New River historical site is over there. So that would have accumulated to 4.07 acres. The habitat and resources, which comprises of the pig farm, the livestock, and then we also looked at the threat or issues in the dry areas. We also did a measurement of various crops, to be in particular with the fruit trees. So we showcasing here the example of bananas, but we also did a number of assorted fruit tree crops such as coconut, sour oranges, avocado, and the list goes on. And for the count, we was able to highlight the amount of sour oranges that we identify in that area. In terms of radius, the habitat and the resources, we did it for the fish pond. The fish ponds that are there, we have a combination of naturally made fish ponds and man-made fish ponds. And the naturally made fish ponds are the ones that are more historical. So we wanted to make sure, highlight that. And then the aquaculture is the man-made aspects of them. Next slide. Kim, go back. We're missing a slide. Oh, go forward.
Okay.
Okay.
For the national supporting projects on the disaster risk management, we have the pre and post all hazard damming assessments, the safe zones and evacuation route mapping, search and rescue operations, which is very important to use the drones to identify lost victims, the DRR public awareness campaigns, the CDMA Hub project, that's already a mapping project, so we could just incorporate drones into that, and multi-hazard early warning systems. The drone can be used to notify people. They could have a speaker attached to notify people within an area of any hazards that could impact them. In terms of emergency and infrastructure monitoring, we have the inspection of bridges, roads, those key infrastructures, defensive delivery of emergency supplies. So in hard-to-reach areas, the drones could reach victims to deliver these key supplies to them, real-time surveillance in hazard zones, and monitoring of weather stations. For the agriculture and environment, we have the crop monitoring, greenhouse and drainage management, the government farms, the biodiversity and hazard mapping, and the Nelson Spring marine zone tracking. Next slide. So so in addition to the partnership with SYNCITS, this slide now highlights the local partnership in Nevis, comprising of agencies under the NIA. This would include IT, Physical Planning and Environment, Department of Agriculture, NEVLEC, the Fire and Rescue Services, NASPERT, Department of Marine Resources, Police Force, and the Nevis Disaster Management Department. Next slide. And then we have a proposed drone unit. So we know that there is a structure that is going to be for the federal aspect, but one that we want to work on internally as well on the island of Nevis. We have proposed that this can be our structure where we would have the permanent secretary of the national security, in particular be for NASPA, and then all of the coordinators, the UAS coordinator, we was thinking that it could be a comprise of the various directors across the different sectors. And then we have a breakdown of the previous partners that we want to have partnership with on the island, where we can have a team comprised of pilot, co-pilot, engineer, and then everybody, of course, would be able to have access to data collector observers. And we definitely included community volunteers because we have some community volunteers over here that are already pilots. So it would be good to keep them in the loop so we can have a strong team. Next slide. All right, so for the SWOT analysis, our SWOT analysis, we would have identified our strengths in regards to drones. We have some drones already on island here, where we have the A2S, the Autel Evo 2.
We are considering hard drives, tablets, laptops, and other hardware that is necessary. In terms of the software, we have Drone Deploy, ArcGIS, Google Earth, where we will continue to use them for mapping, and DJI will be used for the general operations. Then in terms of personnel, we are going to consider a multi-sectorial government agencies where we have the Ministry of Agriculture, we have 2 pilots, 1 analysis, the Ministry of National Security, which comprises of fire, police, and NASPA. We have at least 3 pilots comprised amongst those persons. Ministry of Communication, in regards to IT, they have 2 pilots. The disaster management, we have 1 pilot/analysis, which is Zoe. And then we have an additional pilot. In terms of planning, physical planning and environment, we have a pilot there as well. And NEVLEC, they also have a pilot that is available. In terms of the data analysis, this will be used where we're going to be using the drones for high resolution, capturing of high resolution imagery, land use mapping, rapid assessment of the crops, reduces the need for expensive manual surveys and satellite imagery, and data can be used across the agriculture, forestry, urban planning, disaster management, and environmental monitoring. And in terms of infrastructure and partner agencies, we have the multi-sectorial data sharing collaboration, which includes a comprehensive land mapping, national security, telecommunication, and sustainable environmental monitoring. In terms of the weaknesses, of course, we're dealing with technology, so there must be some sort of aspect of technical difficulties that we may encounter. Limited drones, short span for license renewal, and non-accessibility to drone insurance, or limited accessibility to drone insurance. We are looking at the expensive mapping software, because we know Drone Deploy is expensive, and availability of limited training opportunities in terms of persons. Duplication of data, information is not, we don't have information in a centralized space, and data is not easily accessible because most of it is already hard copy. And then no clear policy framework, and we have little enforcement. In terms of our opportunities, we find that there can be a very much need for more specialized drones, equipments, and accessories, the availability of finances for software, increasing job opportunity and training opportunities for personnel, increase the potential of projects within the government, and then develop a centralized platform for data, and additionally, grants can be also provided. In terms of threat, we live in a very unpredictable, I'm not seeing it listed here, but in terms of threat, we live in a very unpredictable climate. So weather for sure will be a big thing to consider. Larceny, ill management, data corruption, data privacy issues, unavailability of human resources, because probably when we do decide to do certain mapping projects or missions, we may not have access to all of our partners because of they're so stretched across different sectors. Data gatekeeping, poor data management, and another risk can be cybersecurity risks and the lack of government backing that are prevalent threats, where the data interpretation may be a challenge to the heads of the agencies if not handled appropriately. Next slide.
So to conclude, I'll do the recommendations. First, we need a consultation with all the partners to sit them down and explain our whole organizational chart and the structure. We want to establish a UAS hierarchy outlining each department's roles and responsibilities, the national UAS audit to identify all drones and software that are accessible on the island, the geospatial spatial strategies, assessing previous data while creating new data and upholding national standards. For infrastructure needs, of course, we need more specialized drones, accessories, and creation of data platforms. And lastly, long-term technical support, increasing job and training opportunities, in addition to guidance for the UAS Drone Team. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right, well done. So I think now we're going to hear some similar thoughts from St. Kitts team. I am not sure who is presenting, but St. Kitts, let's just make sure when we show the SWOT slide, you just go very briefly over it. It will be detailed in the report. And for time, because Nevis went over there, is pretty detailed, I want to make sure that we don't get too caught up on that one slide because the recommendations, the final recommendations will cover it.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon.
We'll be presenting with Baisha Christian, but before we start, we just want to let you know there are little adjustments with the program. After our presentation, on your presentation, the Permanent Secretary with Miss Gaskell from Nevis. We'll be doing the vote of thanks. Then after the vote of thanks, we will do the Q&A. So I want you to know that, Kim, after our presentation and your presentation, there will be the vote of thanks. Then we will do the Q&A. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, fine. We just go ahead. All of us will quite agree that the establishment of drone units is what will be the next step. And here we wanted to discuss the institutionalization of drone and the geospatial technology in St. Kitts and Nevis. And before we go into that, we want us to understand that there are some partners that we needed in establishing drone unit in St. Kitts and Nevis. As we know, it's a federal initiative. We were supposed to have St. Kitts and Nevis, Department of Agriculture involved, and we're looking at continue working with the Department of Marine Resources, FAO. We are so grateful for them sponsoring this. Also want to continue to work with NEMA and the Department of Physical Planning, and also Nevis Department of Disaster Management. And also we know that we also work with the Civil Aviation Department or Authority. They really help us in licensing the drone and also give us the license to fly drone for the couple 10 weeks. And we will also want to thank our able facilitator, Dr. Kim, his organization in helping to facilitate this training. So we want to, as we continue to go on, move forward, we wanted to have a drone unit and the structure. We look forward that the Director of Agriculture will be at the helm of the drone unit, and we are going to have 2 drone UAS, a coordinator from St. Kitts and Nevis, and we're also going to have pilots and the engineer from Nevis and St. Kitts, and also the same co-pilot and the engineer in St. Kitts and Nevis. We also want to duplicate the same thing when you come to the analysts. We're going to have analysts from St. Kitts and Nevis. This is the proposed structure. As we move forward, next slide. Quickly, we identified in the course of the training, we identified various applications. Some of them, as we may want to repeat it again, agricultural, mapping and planning statistics. And the second one, ecosystem biodiversity mapping and monitoring. The next one, next slide, surveillance and monitoring. And the last one, we are going to look at the application in disaster risk planning and management. The next slide. There are some of the national projects and partners we considered. A Mansion group called as Agricultural Group in Mansion. As we know from the presentation, Mansion is a very critical agricultural zone in St. Kitts. We wanted to also looking at the next project, Islam Management Unit mapping and agricultural land use and monitoring. The next project we consider is coastal erosion assessment and development monitoring. The next one is hazard vulnerability and the community mapping assessment. The last we considered is infrastructure planning, surveillance, and enforcement. Some of our partners we consider is CAD, that is Civil Aviation Department, and the SCASPA, NEMA and Physical Planning, Public Work, Sustainable Development, farmers, community groups, and the construction, those in construction, and the engineers. We wanted to bring everybody on board. And finally, we are looking at lending institutions, the bank, and so on to support as we move forward. The next slide. SWOT analysis, we asked Christian to just give a summary. We might not need to go into a summary of the analysis.
Okay, I will just quickly go through the SWOT analysis. Before you, the drone unit, why do we need the drone unit? The SWOT analysis break that down, the hardware that we will be using, software. There's one important aspect in the software that I need to pinpoint, the strength of the software. It is extremely user-friendly, I have to say. And one major weakness that I need to bring across is the fact that it is a one shared license. And as you can see, there are two sectors that will be using this account with many different personnels, such as Nevis and St. Kitts. And going forward, I think that this weakness should be looked at and license supposed to be considered. Opportunity, which lead me to the opportunity, the expansion of the software across the ministries. There room to expand. So yes, I think that the drone deploy software, we should look at that. Personnel, as you can see again, the personnel is diverse. It's made up, the drone unit is made up of NEMA, St. Kitts Nevis team, planning, you name it. And then going down to the bottom, you have the infrastructure and partnership. So that's basically it for the SWOT analysis. Next slide. Building capacity for the unit. These before you are the parameters for the St. Kitts Nevis drone unit. Going forward, brainstorming, developing ideas for the future, infrastructure and organizational support, financial support, and capacity strengthening. That one there is stick up in there. Yes, it's important. Going forward, we're hoping that management consider budgets in the future for the drone unit. Project selection and services. These are the services that we will be providing as the unit, and training, continued training and license certification and equipment. So these are some of the key implementations that we will be looking at. Next slide.
I think this is me.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Did you have more closing thoughts?
No, I thought that I had to present all that.
No, I said I'd take over from here.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Aisha and Wuso. Okay, great job, teams. That was really good summary of all the work. I hope everybody watching today can see how much effort and time, as well as really how much this team's learned. I just want to reiterate the fact that this was a very challenging training because of the environment of this time of year. Also, we had a lot of the team didn't talk about. I was hoping somebody would brought it up, but a lot of different challenging issues. We had a lot of electromagnetic interference and connection issues. I don't know if it's the volcano. I don't know what it was, but the Air2S was very finicky. The apps were very finicky. But in conclusion, a lot really was accomplished. And I think the rougher things are, I kept getting excited when glitches would happen and problems because the team kept learning. I can definitely say this was an action-packed, high learning training experience because literally almost every problem or issue that could go wrong did go wrong. So I do feel that this team, especially amongst all 18 heads, has a very strong foundation. But that does not mean it's just like you learn to drive, you could pass your learner's test, you've done a few hours, you've got to get out there and practice. This does not mean this team is fully ready to go guns blazing. They need more, as I call it, stick time. They need more hours flying to really build their confidence and skills. But at the end of this FAO 10-week training, we have successfully trained 5 different agencies across St. Kitts and Nevis. We've mapped over 2,000 acres. I think actually that might be the wrong one. I thought it was 3,000, but maybe it's 2,000 acres, 400 images as we went over all of these, and way more than 600. I put that number up there a couple of days ago, and you can see some of these sites had several hundred. So a lot of the measurements, and also I think the team did not touch on the fact that even though you're seeing these measurements, a few of them showed it in Drone Deploy, they can all be exported out, all those annotations, all those measurements, either and viewed in Google Earth or ArcGIS or any other spatial analysis software. So well done, team. We've collected a lot of data and gotten a great start. Do the next slide. In conclusion, what I wanted to do, I've worked a lot with the team over the last few weeks, in particular the last few days, discussing that SWOT analysis. We've been working on that. We've been picking at it and really trying to understand what is going to enable success for this team. How I've worked with many countries. I've seen many of them successfully implement immediately after this training, but it does require some steps, particularly from the upper level decision makers. So what will enable the unit for success? As I mentioned, and the team mentioned, the first thing that needs to happen is a very serious high-level meeting needs to happen with the team to really understand the potential internal structures and integrations amongst these agencies and islands. Clear roles and responsibilities need to be designated. We've learned, we've practiced, we've tested. The team has some great ideas, but now it's time for you to sit down about your workflows, and they understand. They're all pretty much experts. They can tell you what's required and who's best suited at things, but we need to get this figured out as soon as possible. So again, continuing to work with civil aviation. I have shared the draft operations manual as well as the exam results from the commercial operations policy with civil aviation in SCOSPA, but you all need to continue to move forward to get your commercial licenses and continue to work with them, as well as defining the roles for these partner agencies, standardizing across agencies. We have a flight request form the team has been using and mission planning processes. Will these be the forms that you take over and continue to use, or are they going to happen in a different way? Again, I'm beating this one to death, but really a working group should be established within the country, not just within the ministry, but amongst all public sectors to better understand the capacity, hardware, skills, equipment, and the alignment amongst national projects and programs. The team, as I mentioned, needs to apply their skills. I would highly recommend weekly mapping missions, but remember, I think you've seen, I hope you've gotten a taste, especially the people that were not on the team watching this presentation, of how much time is required and pre-planning. You can't request a mission and expect the team to go out in an hour or that afternoon and fly it. Safety assessment, feasibility assessment, flight approvals have to be done. Flight plans need to be done. Drone firmware needs to be checked. There is sometimes a site assessment on site to understand the site for the ideal takeoff locations. Setting up the site is the hardest part. We've got these 7 sites set up now. It is very easy for the team now to go back to that site. They know where to do, they hit play or go on the drone deploy flight app, and it will fly the same exact surveys in these same exact ways that we've already set up. But that initial site setup on a mapping site takes some time, as well as the data analysis, the validation, the working with the stakeholders to fill in the data gaps. Drone data can only give you a spatial visual, but you've got to put the attribute or the textual information behind the data into the data so that you can make informed decisions. So furthermore, we started this as part of the training. We did a national or within the ministry an audit, and we have a running spreadsheet of all the identified drones the ministry has and equipment. Furthermore, understanding the partners. What training have they had? How much training do they have? How much experience do they have? And what drones do they have? And maybe either setting up informal agreements or MOUs to be able to share and work with equipment. This team learned a lot about drones. They can tell you now which drones are better suited for what. Some models we identified are only good for photography. We've got a good core of them that are good for mapping. Some of them are out of date and are no longer supported. So this sort of internal review needs to happen, as well as maintaining continued support and partnerships. The team has mentioned and I know of Caribbean drone regional forums. We also have the FAO drone teams, but collaborating, staying in touch with these other drone people in the Caribbean is very useful. Furthermore, the team, I've provided them a lot. We are like family. They probably kind of hate me like family sometimes too. No, just kidding. But this ongoing coaching, team training, and guidance, a lot of work. I want to give a shout out to Wuso, who has been the coordinator, is required by the coordinator to effectively work together with the teams. Even when we're on site, we're flying multiple drone mapping missions. You need to have somebody that's coordinating the different teams and doing air traffic control. So really having on a point person, but also ongoing coaching support. Many countries, many teams I provide monthly coaching calls. They hire me as a consultant to provide guidance, strategic direction. So it doesn't have to be me, it could be somebody within the country, but somebody should be there to hold their hands. They are still beginners. I've taught them the tools, I've taught them where to find help, and I'm always will be helping them a little too. But this team is just, remember, they're just toddlers. They know how to walk, but they fall down still, and they're gonna need some time. And I highly recommend giving them a day or two a week to get out there and fly, which is why partnering it and piggybacking this on top of national initiatives is extremely important. So we're gonna push the questions to the end. Riza, was there closing remarks that you wanted to make?
No, nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to now go to the permanent secretary. I will start this by saying here, team, I'm sorry, we will not be getting your presentations today. Many of the team members literally gave me presentations and assignments minutes to the start of this exam. And so I had therefore need to update those, but they will be emailed to you later today or tomorrow morning for printing and distribution. I'm going to stop sharing and I invite closing remarks.
Esteemed colleagues and distinguished attendees, please allow me to adopt the protocol that was set by Ms. Riza Spencer. I would like to say thank you to the director, Yoshena Jeffers, for allowing me this opportunity to bring closing remarks. I would also like to extend gratitude to each of you for your active participation in this important project. This project has provided a vital platform to highlight the critical role of participatory geospatial technologies and drones in strengthening agricultural risk management and disaster resilience in St. Kitts and Nevis. Various facets of drone technology and geospatial analysis have been explored, from training reviews to real-world case studies that demonstrate the effectiveness of these tools in our areas of concentration. The insights shared here have illuminated the immense potential of these technologies in advancing sustainable agricultural practices and climate resilience in our region through our collaboration. The case studies from St. Kitts and Nevis have further emphasized the tangible benefits that come from collaboration between governmental agencies, stakeholders, and the dedicated teams from the Department of Agriculture, NEMA, and the Department of Physical Planning. We realize that more contributions can be made to data collection, risk assessment, and institutional strengthening, thus laying the groundwork for more informed decision-making. We are confident that with the dedication and commitment shown here today and onwards, we will continue to advance these technologies, benefiting farmers, planners, and policymakers alike. In closing, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to Dr. Kim Baldwin, her team, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, on a whole, for their support in making this initiative a success. I also thank all of our partners, presenters, and participants for their valuable contributions. And I must say that I am looking forward for the establishment of the drone units. Thank you once again, and I look forward to continue to collaborate as well as we build a more resilient future for St. Kitts and Nevis. Safe travels and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there any questions or comments from the crowd? No? Team? Okay.
Okay, Kim, I don't know. Okay, Dr. Kofi, the Chief Veterinary Officer, we want to say something.
Great.
Okay, I have a question.
Hi, good day. I have questions, but I would assume that the drone team would have been able to answer the questions. Am I posing them to Kim or am I posing them to the drone team?
You're posing to them. To them.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question. Okay. I saw accuracy mentioned in a number of the different presentations. I did see accuracy sometimes at 2 meters, accuracy at 12 meters. Could you all explain exactly how does that affect? Is it a measuring thing? Is it a pixel? And lost to me, so I understand it better.
If they want me to answer it, but I'd like to see if they could answer it.
Answer the first one, pixel, talking about the quality of the images. You find out that anything below 5 centimeters is good. So that's why the first, our mapping in Piggy Bay was almost 3 centimeters, which is good. The next other one is the surface accuracy. We find that at times we see some of them that are higher or low. But basically, most of our mapping accuracy is good.
Okay, Wuso, I'll help you out there. Doctor, I think it was Kofi, what you're asking, they are a little confused, I think, on terminology. There's the resolution, which Wuso was speaking to, which is the resolution of the picture of the pixels within the result. So the mapping resolutions, how far can you zoom in? What can you see on the ground? Versus the accuracy, which is the GPS. I know that Junie can answer this question because he's answered this for me before. Is the GPS, or same with IO, the GPS accuracy of where the map is connected onto the Earth. There were some typos, I believe, on some of the slides, especially the one that said 12 meters. I believe it would probably like 2.1 meters. Typically, the accuracy on these products with this is based on the model of the drone. And so the Air2S is typically plus or minus 2 meters, which means the features within the map, you can measure, let's say, the row length, and within the map accuracy, or within the map, you can measure that. That is highly accurate. We're talking about the global or relative accuracy of where this map is actually snapped onto the Earth. It could be shifted 1 meter or 2 meters from its true location. This can be fixed with GIS and as well with ground sampling points using that drone, or using a high accuracy drone, which it would automatically snap into the correct location.
Okay, thank you. I just have two more.
Yeah.
I had a concern, or just wondering if there is within the program or within the protocol some concern as it is to privacy. The drones do have cameras on them, and we are mapping sometimes areas that include residential areas or include businesses. How does that really coincide with persons' privacy, meaning that we are flying drones above head, but they do have photography and video capacity? So there's a policy that guides states.
Yeah, I would like the team to answer that one. What are you guys doing? Oh, they are.
Answering. By the policy, you cannot allow to fly something like the military. You cannot fly through without permission. Even government offices, prime ministers of house, they are not allowed to fly drone there without permission. And even if you want to fly in some cities and private place, we might need to require to check permission. For instance, when we fly at a restaurant over there, so we have to ask permission.
Oh, so you do ask permission?
We do get permission, yes, from SCOSPA, but also there are ways that you can cut people's, if it overflew, or let's say we're flying, let's say next to a government building or one of those restricted areas, there's a way to crop that out of the results as well. But we asked SCOSPA, we've also been practicing and learning about doing also community announcements, or using the government information service to announce to farmers in the area that drones will be in the area. Also on the ground, when we show up on site, we walk around and tell the people around what we are doing and why. So but I highly recommend, especially my team in St. Lucia got their drone shot down out of the sky in a farming area over a ganja field. So by having GIS and public service radio announcements, especially in areas that might be a little more controversial, or maybe you're concerned about, it's also very useful. Now that team always has, every time they go out, public service announcements announcing what they're doing and why.
Okay, just a follow on from that. We do have, unfortunately, illegal operations that will be happening close to where crops are. This is a situation where if a drone maps an area and something is then identified, there's no obligation to report or do anything to that sort, so that we do have persons not wanting us in the area because we can't see certain things like that. It's also in the policy.
Yeah, I think this is a good point. I think this is, again, the mandate and the meeting that I was talking about, in terms of we have a mandate we've got based on the agricultural strategy and the mission that of the agricultural department from the website. We gleaned and put together like priorities of the unit in St. Kitts. There's a section in the operations manual which speaks to this, but I think that these sort of things need to be very clearly identified. I talked about in St. Kitts, in Dominica to the team, that a lot of times people start asking you to use the drone for things that are not relevant to the mission and mandate of the ministry or in the department. So I think that this is a really good point, that the drone is not used for enforcement. It's not used to catch people. This is used to collect farming information.
And my only last question is, with the annotations, is it possible that you can filter annotations? So if we're only looking at maybe houses, or we're looking at boats, or we're looking at one specific thing, you can filter annotations? Okay. All right then. Great. Thank you. That's me.
Great. Thanks so much. And yes, the data can be filtered in Drone Deploy, but it can also be exported and used in Google Earth, as well as ArcGIS to do advanced spatial analysis. Are there any other questions?
Ask any other question? As soon as possible, we have to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ask Kim. Moro asking the question, he could answer the question. Come and ask the question.
The question is, for the record, what is the Mavic 3 with the multispectral and the thermal?
I don't know. Depends how much you guys fly. So I think I will close that, Monroe, by saying thank you very much, St. Kitts team. It has been quite a journey. You do not have your certificates yet. So for those of you that have not submitted your assignments, please submit them if there's anything due or missing. The other last piece of, let's say, housekeeping I need for the team, you must all do this. You need to get your certificate as well. You must complete this course self-assessment, the final assessment of the training. And it's a personal self-assessment of the skills and the knowledge you've learned over the course. I need you to fill that out to get your certificates for the course. And last but not least, I'm giving the team another month with access to all the lessons and virtual training academy. So you've got until May 1st, you've got Easter break. I know you guys are gonna miss me. So you've got a little time to review lessons, to rewatch some of those points and download all of the information that I've given you and the handouts by the end of the month. And last but not least, if you do not follow me on some sort of social media, so you can at least get updated, I like to post on my Instagram or on LinkedIn updates about new trainings, new initiatives, maybe new features that have come up with the apps, as well as drone tips and tricks. So I hope that this is not the end of the journey with me and the St. Kitts and Nevis team. It has been a very intense 12 weeks, but it's been my pleasure teaching you all, working with you all, and please do keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Kim, from the Nevis team. We appreciate you. Much love.
Yeah, Nevis. Queen City. Okay, I guess I'll say goodbye to St. Kitts. Is anyone there to say goodbye? Oh, I guess I just get the roof. Okay, bye guys.